Hi, I'm making this video in response to one of the comments, where do we go when we die? So I'm speaking from a Christian's perspective. Okay, so the human being is made of body, soul, and spirit. And so we believe that when Adam and Eve sinned, their spirit died. And spiritual death is can be defined as eternal separation from God, because when God breathed into Adam, he breathed his life into Adam, and when Adam and Eve sinned, that life is extinguished. So in that sense, that his spirit died, so to speak. So however, if you can imagine, the spirit is like a container, but now it's an empty container without the life of God. So so when a human being dies, the body portion perishes, but the soul and spirit are still there, because the soul and spirit is not tangible and it's not physical. And the soul and spirit was created to be everlasting. The body is perishable, but the soul and spirit isn't. So because the soul and spirit doesn't perish, okay, let me just clarify. Remember I said that when Adam and Eve sinned, the spirit died. So that is spiritual death. But the reason why I still say soul and spirit is because if you consider the spirit as an empty container. So the soul and spirit in many different religions are usually used interchangeably. But in terms of most Christian theology, it can be used interchangeably, and sometimes it's also used differently as well. So I mean, among Christians we also have certain differences in looking at things, but we do agree on the conclusion of the answer to the question, where do we go when we die? Okay, so back to the question. The spirit and the soul do not perish. So if they do not perish when the body dies, there must be a place to house them, and we believe it's either heaven or hell. But heaven is where God reigns, and God is holy, and God and sin cannot stand in the presence of God. So so in that sense, the spirit and soul, so in terms, if spirit and soul goes to heaven, the spirit must be alive with the life of God. The person must have been chosen to have paid for his sins, right? And there's no way we can pay for our sins that is sufficient for God, except through the sacrifice, through the accepting of the sacrifice of his son, through the shedding of blood. There is remission of sins. And so it's a pretty tricky question. A lot of people believe that we should do good, and when we do good, we can pay for our sins. I think some of my Christian brothers call it penance, but God's holiness is so high that no amount of good works is able to wash away our sins but the blood of his son. So that's the only way. Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and the life. That's the only way back to source, if you would say that, back to the Lord. So if we're not housed in heaven, then we would be then the soul and the spirit would be housed in the underworld, in hell. And this has, if you see historically, the pagan religions and people in the ancient world are actually more spiritually attuned. So all of them agree that there's an underworld. In terms of different dimensions, it's not so much that we do not hover between dimensions. Those are only for the fallen angelic hosts of God. And so because in Christianity there are 3 heavens, we believe. Yeah, and so in between the second and third heaven, or the atmospheres, right, is where the fallen angelic hosts also are around. I think the difference is that in Christianity we are very aware that there's a good side and an evil side, and I think a lot of times in spirituality it's outside, spiritually elsewhere, they only do not identify with the or I mean, let me put it this way, they ignore the evil side. But when you actually are trying to understand spirituality, you cannot have a full picture by ignoring one portion of it. I'm not saying, of course I'm not talking about cultivating it, and I'm sorry I'm gone off tangent, but yeah, that's my answer. Do we return to source? No, we don't. Or I should say, it depends. It depends. So it depends on the choices you make in life. Yeah, so that's my answer, and love to hear your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.